Welcome to another episode of Strategy and Tragedy Debrief. These are the in-betweeny episodes between the main interviews that I do. And this time around, I am so excited to dive into debriefing on the Maxine Laceby interview that came out last Wednesday. So if you haven't listened to that already yet, then make sure that you go back. I think it's episode 52 because it marks a year of the show. Maxine Laceby is the co-founder of Absolute Collagen. She is a force to be reckoned with, an amazing character, so I highly recommend listening to that one if you haven't already. Anyway, diving into this episode, I am so pleased to be joined by Anna Pearce-Roberts, the host of the Her Shift podcast and founder of Cordelia Co, a luxury makeup artist business who's got a very interesting connection to Maxine and Absolute Collagen. So Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Mike Stevens, who is an S&T OGer. He is a Strategy and Tragedy former guest of mine. I highly recommend listen to that episode. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but Mike is here with me now, and I'm not saying this just because he's here with me. I recommend this particular episode all the time to so many different people, and I've definitely dropped it into other episodes. So Mike, don't worry, I'm not just blowing hot air up you while I've got you here with me.
No, please do. I like it.
Keep it coming. I love it. Mike, I guess one of the biggest claims to fame, one of the early employees are Innocent. We all know Innocent smoothies, juices, and then went off to set up Peppersmith, which I was definitely familiar with, a household peppermint brand. He is a serial entrepreneur, advisor to consumer brands, and literally wrote the book on D2C consumer business. So he is an author as well to add to his job title. He's nodding away, liking all these achievements and platitudes that I'm sharing with him. So it made complete sense as the consumer expert to get him on this episode with me too. So Mike, great to see you again. Welcome.
Oh no, thanks for having me back. It's always a good place to be.
Fantastic. All right, I want to kick off with Anna's very intriguing claim to fame, her connection to Maxine Laceby and Absolute Collagen. Anna, tell us about your connection.
I was an actual consumer. I am an absoluter. And you hear about these brands that claim, oh, we listen to the consumers and we have real people in our adverts, and you think, yeah. But it's really true. I was invited with a load of other women to partake in their photo shoots, their campaigns. I got a phone call and they said, how up for you to wear a swimsuit? And I was like, well, luckily I've shaved my legs today, so we'll give it a go. And it was a yellow swimming costume. And they said, we want you to run along this jetty and jump into this lake. And it was freaking freezing. It was very much consumer driven. It was like, all we care about is the consumer. And I know everyone says that, but there was a real, as you know, when you're speaking to Maxine, you can tell that's all she cares about, which I know we should all do, but you think, do they really, these big brands? And they do.
We should all do it. I'm going to jump over to you, Mike, the consumer expert, of course. As Anna's just said, everyone talks about these things. It sounds like we should be doing them. It is best practice. How many brands actually take the time to do that, Mike?
The brands that are normally doing quite well, they read them. The ones that don't, there you work that out. But yeah, it was amazing to me. Like, I was really lucky. My experience, my formative days at Innocent, that was all very consumer first. And then I took all that learning into Peppersmith, where it was all consumer first. I was talking about this the other day actually, and it's like, oh, Mike's really good. He's like, he's always consumer first. And it's like, duh. For a consumer goods business, I mean, you have to be. But I think it's right. In terms of brands, they do sort of forget who their customers sometimes, get too stuck in the numbers and the metrics and stuff, but communicate to customers. I actually when it comes to D2C, for me it's a real red flag when they actually outsource their customer service. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, oh god, do we really want that hassle when we can outsource it? And it's quite easy to do that, but you're missing all of that amazing insight you get from consumers, especially even the ones that are really fed up because they haven't got a delivery or something's gone wrong. But the conversations you can have are great. You have to be consumer first.
Can you be too close, like, to being the consumer yourself? Like, I feel like so many entrepreneurs, I guess, is there a distinction between being an entrepreneur and launching a business and thinking like, oh, this is a pain point that I'm experiencing, I wish this would exist, versus going in more business minded?
It's a validation. Yeah, if you know that you've got a pain point, and that pain is real.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try and imagine, oh, I think other people might have a pain point that's not being sort of fulfilled, there might be an opportunity there. I mean, I think that's more risky because you don't know if it's true or not. But if you're feeling it, it's like at least you've got, it might be a sample size of one, but you know one person has got this problem.
Anna, you clearly are at least the second person who had the same problem. What exactly was like the problem in air quotes, you know, for you when you first saw Absolute Collagen and you were like, this is for me, I'll give it a go? What was it that really kind of spoke to you and made you think, I'll give this a go?
So it's a representation of women my age. And but then if we are seen, we only want the positive. We only want the women that it's working for. We only want the models. We only want the glossed over version. And so not only was I feeling seen, validated, represented, it's also saying, you know what, we get what you're going through. You know, women of that age, you know, you're going to have skin problems, hair problems. We get it. This might help. And if it helps a little bit, we'd like to know. And if it doesn't, we'd like to know that side of things. And I was just thinking, because they're very active on the social media with the Facebook groups. And what I've always loved, and this again was since I've stuck with them, that sometimes people will go into these groups and post negative comments and they'll get really, really arsy because like they'll have a misdelivery or it's just not working for them. And they don't delete those comments. They personally address them.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
Interesting. They're really owning it, aren't they? It's with the whole product market validation in those early days. Did you pick up on anything from Maxine's story, going from like in the kitchen, discovering this byproduct of the bone broth, sharing it with her friends, to absolutely exploding to this level of success? And when I say like this level of success, like we're talking about a 42 million valuation.
It is an explosive business. They've done incredibly well, but it's years in the making. I mean, I loved in the episode her story about, you know, she got her friends to, you know, test the product to see if it worked, but the fact that she got them to sign disclaimers
So funny.
about an NDA, it's like, wow. That, I mean, then you start getting an insight. Okay, you know, this individual doesn't operate the same way. She's built different, right? But you know, I guess the point is she did the work, right? She did the bone broth, and then I've discovered collagen and tried it with her friends, and you know, they got the results, and she started building their business from there. I also think, you know, it's part of the thing with Maxine. She's done so well in terms of she's got real belief and assurance in terms of what she does. You know, she knows who she is and she knows who she's not, and she's built this great business. But she's also been lucky. She hit onto collagen at just the right moment. You know, she wasn't the only collagen brand. You know, there's a few out there, but she was really leading the charge. You know, I've got to know this space quite well, and I like it. I mean, I take collagen. I'm not a middle-aged woman, but you know, I believe in the health benefits. So, you know, I like the space, but you know, she was lucky. She was there right at the start. I mean, you could say maybe that's because she was a visionary and she would have got lucky in something else. I don't know, but I do know she was there at the right time.
Something else you bring to mind. Do you know another guest I've had on the show you've made me realize that, I don't know why I didn't connect the dots on this before, but who's had a really similar success story in the consumer space where luck definitely played a part in it too, was Liv Furdy of Trip Drinks, the CBD drinks brand. That, you remind me a lot of that actually as I'm listening to you there, where yes, they've still developed a fantastic product, the branding with both of them as well. Obviously, I'm a brand marketing gal, so I need to drop that in there. But like Absolute Collagen, I mean, Anna, let's just do a quick fire test here with you. What's the first just like keywords that come to mind for you when I say Absolute Collagen? What comes to mind?
I think of the yellow, vibrancy, life.
I'm so glad you said that.
Planning, empowerment.
Yeah.
Get your life back, empowerment. This is, showing up.
Exactly, all of that. Those are all exactly the keywords I had in mind too. So it's great. So I didn't want to say that, sort of bit my tongue to make sure a consumer would say it without me kind of asking any leading questions or anything. And so again, just with the Trip comparison, same with them, like strong brand, they know exactly who they're talking to, they're all over consumers. So they're doing the right things. But Mike, again, to your point, there is an element of luck that enters the equation. And I think that element of luck is market timings, because they again, Trip were at the beginning of that CBD wave, and there were other drinks brands that were starting at the same time, in the same way there are other collagen beauty supplement brands. But I guess, is it that, going all the way back to putting the consumer first? Is it solid product? Is it the branding? Is it the combination of all of the above? Or is there something else that I'm missing, so that when the luck comes your way, you're ready there to grab it by the horns?
And there's always an element of, you can put yourself in the way of luck, which is great. I mean, and I think, brands like, you mentioned Absolute Collagen, you mentioned Trip. I can think of Perfect Ted.
Yeah.
Back in the day, maybe Innocent as well. They were in the right place at the right time. But then it's all about the execution, and all of those brands have just done a brilliant job in execution. So that should be celebrated. But oh yes, you do have to be lucky. I mean, one of the things that Maxine said, she remortgaged their house, and she put everything on the line to make this work. And she said she had no fear, which I don't know if we want to talk more about that, but it was a thing. But she just went for it, and I think it all turned out obviously amazingly well for her. However, there's luck involved, because I know a lot of people who've made the same decisions to remortgage, and they put they go all in, and they don't have a happy ending. So history is written by the winners, right?
I would also love to interview like some of those friends, and what I'm very conscious of on a show called Strategy and Tragedy, of avoiding that survivorship bias. And so that's where Maxine was fantastic to interview. But as you say, she did have that happy ending. It doesn't always work out that way. While we're on the subject of the explosive growth that Absolute Collagen had, a lot of businesses require investment, some sort of external capital, particularly if there is a physical product, if there's been manufacturing, the delivery, all those other hard costs that go into it. This is the first and maybe only time that I have ever heard an entrepreneur going out and seeking investment, not because they needed the money, but because they needed someone to answer to. The exact opposite reason that every other entrepreneur goes out for investment. Mike, again, so I'm going to stick with you on this one. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting development in the story. I mean, I wonder if also, I mean, getting, I don't know, obviously like 6 or 7 million quid or whatever the number was, that's quite a useful amount of cash to have in your business,
Quite
right?
useful,
So I don't think it was probably the only reason that she wanted that investment. I mean, it's quite useful. But what I would say, I like her thinking in terms of, it's actually better for me to answer. This is the problem that most founders have, right? They don't have anyone to answer to. Which means, while I guess while they're just getting started, and they haven't got a lot to lose, it doesn't really matter. But all of a sudden, you've got a business that's worth 5, 10, 20 million more, whatever the number is, was actually, actually I've got something to lose here. And then something else that Maxine said that I really liked is like, actually, it's not just about me, it's about all my employees and my stakeholders and stuff. This is really important. If I mess this up, it's going to impact them as well. So I've got to take this more seriously. And so I love that. So, and I think it's a neat way to do it. But I work with sort of self-funded founders. And now, and I always say, look, you can fund yourself, but make sure you've got, some advisors, maybe a chairperson, whoever, just as someone to just give you some advice, give you some guardrails, because otherwise it is just too easy to think, I know what I do. I know what I'm doing. Especially if you've tossed the coin 10 times and you've got it right every time. You're going to be like, ooh, I should probably just do it again, right?
What's it called? Is there like a God syndrome? Is there a name for it? There's somebody start to build your own Mount Olympus, don't you? And
I think there's a simpler word for it. It's just hubris.
Yeah. Have you ever met any entrepreneurs that went out to get investment for not because of the money, but to have somebody to answer to have that other level of like responsibility?
Not explicitly, but I would say it's definitely a benefit. And even when I deal with sort of early stage founders who are looking for angel investors, they definitely want those angel investors who are going to support and guide them. Yeah. As well as just giving them the cash. So I think we as entrepreneurs, we all do it, but it's it's just a brilliant thing. It's like the main reason I did it is because I need someone to sort of keep me in check. I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard anyone
exactly.
say it like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the camera or my reaction at that point. I was like, what? Like, this is actually the complete opposite reason that every single other entrepreneur goes out to get investment. But Maxine, of course, she's one to go against the grain and do things differently. And again, from your perspective as a beauty lover, beauty professional, and of course, as a very early consumer, is there anything more you can speak to in terms of the evolution of the brand and like how you've seen the business evolve since you first tried the product back in 2020?
Look at it from both ways as a consumer, but I've also been self-employed for nearly 30 years now. So I look at it from both, and I have to say, I will jump on board with these stories as they happen, take things from them, utilize them, reverse engineer. So I started to study the evolution of it because it was blowing my mind. It was just, I'm thinking, I know it's in my algorithm now, but equally I was studying it. And I'm just going to say, when I was listening to the podcast, it made me think, because I've always had several businesses on the go. It made me really uncomfortable, actually. Some of the things she was saying, not in a bad way, but when she was talking about, like, say, the investment side of it, but also remortgaging our house.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a similar position myself. I have to say, therefore, I have never gone all in, got children. My house is my own. I've worked damn hard for it. And the idea that she's got that much confidence in herself. I was reading Bannatyne's book, and he would not give the money to somebody simply because they had equity in their house and they wouldn't bet their business on their house. So he said, if you're not prepared to do it, I'm therefore not prepared to do it either.
So
and I agree, but equally, I'm feeling I don't know if I could do that.
I definitely do not agree. I do not agree.
It's just like that level of like, I'm thinking you're crazy, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think it's that I mean, I work with business professionals more on like say on the mental health side of things, and therefore I'm fascinated behind these decision making processes, especially as a woman. And the fact I was feeling so uncomfortable, and I'm thinking, is it this craziness, this risk taking and a bit of luck that has got you there?
Mm.
And if that's the case, fantastic. But also, I'm like, I ain't ever doing that.
Yeah.
I am not going that far in. That's not happening.
It's funny the way you phrase that there with risk taking and luck, because actually they're one and the same. The more risk you take, the luckier you get. I know Simon Squibb is the one like coining that. He's doing away with the classic phrase, the harder I work, the luckier I get. He's completely throwing that in the bin and being like, no, that's absolutely not true. In fact, like the least I've worked is the richest I ever got. So it's actually more about the risk tolerance. We are running out of time. So Anna, I'm so glad that you've touched on this fear factor and the risk tolerance, because this was the final point I wanted to chat about as well here. Mike, coming over to you, fear factor. How much do you agree with what Anna's just said there? How much do you think risk ties in with luck? Would love to get your thoughts.
Just go on to the Duncan Bannatyne stuff, which I also do not agree with. I think, Steph, we've spoken about this before in terms of how easy it is to take a risk when you've got a huge safety net.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that terrible advice, but hey ho. I mean, it's all right if it turns out well, right? You're really going to win, and it's like, you've got you've got really strong convictions. But actually, I don't know if you've ever read I think it's Originals, the first Adam Grant book. It's a great book. I recommend it to anyone. But one of the things he identified is actually the best entrepreneurs are the ones that are best at hedging or mitigating your risk, so you're never betting the farm. And I think as you do as a business, you make lots of small experiments and you do lots of small bets, but you never bet the farm, because the chances of getting it wrong are quite high, and if you do, boom, you're out of there. One thing Maxine had in terms of her risk tolerance, I think it comes to the back, she really backed herself. It's great. But actually, when I listened to her, I sort of heard someone who's got more of that stoic mentality, which was, if this goes wrong, it's not going to be the end of the world. Yeah. I'm going to be able to sort myself out. So therefore, I'm prepared to take that risk. And I thought that's right. That's different from, I'm just going to do this then because sod it. I believe in myself.
Yeah. How much of that do you think is age?
I think it's unusual for her to take that big risk at how old she is, because the older you get, the more wealth you accumulate, right? You've got more to lose, and she's got kids as well. So I think, that's very, very unusual.
How about you, Anna?
Well, I was thinking I was factoring the divorce into it as well. I think she had 10 years on me for that. So whereas when I got divorced, and I was in a similar position, I went completely opposite, and I would have been like hedging. Like, there's no way I'm going to sink this all in. It's like that. Whereas I went, I've worked too damn hard for too long, I'm not going to be doing this. But she went completely the other way. It was a case of the divorce that added to that as well. Like, this is a new stage of my life and I'm going to go all in. And
exactly. And interesting you mentioned as well, not only the age, but the life stage that you're at. So if the divorce happened when the kids were maybe teenagers, it sounds like they're a little bit older. It's not the same situation as it sounds like you were in, Anna, where you have got more of that dependency with your kids, especially as the mom as well, and in a heteronormative family unit. Thank you both so much for coming on. Any final closing thoughts on this force to be reckoned with, this very unusual, fascinating character of Maxine, or indeed the business of Absolute Collagen?
I've never known anyone say the only thing I'm scared of is something happened to my kids. Everyone else has got lots of other things to unpack there.
You've got nothing to fear. You've got nothing to stop you.
Yeah.
So, I think if you have nothing to fear, go for it. You can achieve whatever you want. I would just say, just a reminder of, just it's like a risk. It's like it's a gamble, right? And don't be prepared to gamble more than you're prepared to lose. And I think whether that's in business, or whatever else you do, it's a good lesson. So, but I love that. I wish I had no fear.
She said herself, she said it is a good and a bad thing. She was like, sometimes it doesn't work in my favor, like it's all part of our human nature to have fear to keep us safe in some ways. And I think, again, as the host and producer of this show, I just want to come back again to that survivorship bias piece, right? And it's like one of the most commonly asked questions I get asked, especially for early stage entrepreneurs thinking of starting a business, is like, should I quit my day job? How should I go all in? And there is, I don't know, it's hard, right? Because there is a danger that you hear these stories of, I remortgaged my house, I just threw it all in, I got lucky, and I had this stratospheric success, versus, as we were saying before, the people where you don't have that happy ending. I also don't want to take away that excitement and motivation.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay so long as you recognize there's a degree of luck.
Yeah.
If you think that you've just worked out the magic formula, that's wrong. You have to make the most of that unknown, which is the luck there. If you can do that, I think that's absolutely fine. You should have excitement. But I think all entrepreneurs, we're all a bit crazy, right? We all need to do things that actually are probably not a very good bet, because if we had that, if we wanted to completely play it safe, we wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can spreadsheet your way out of any situation. It's easy to say no than it is to say yes. So yeah, I get you, Mike. We've all got a bit of founder crazy in us. Thank you both so much for coming on and doing this debrief episode with me on such a great interview with Maxine. Just such an awesome character. Really appreciate your time, your input. Great to see you both again. And of course, thank you so much for listening. We've got another fantastic episode coming soon, so make sure that you're subscribed to not miss out, and hopefully see you next time.